Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
I named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, it's the ineffable 007 Frank. How are you today?
I am dead at the end of this podcast.
Wow. It's dark. It got dark.
I took the bit to its logical conclusion. I'm sorry.
Well,
I took it too far. Too far.
I guess then this podcast can never end. There's
Frank
no
Ramblings
time,
will appear. Will return.
Will he? All right. So
how exactly?
Let us talk about James Bond's No Time to Die, the final installment in the Daniel Craig saga of 007. Before we do that, spoilers from henceforth, probably from 2 minutes ago.
From prior forth.
Let's talk about what we are drinking. Frank, you go first.
Okay. Well, this is it. The time has come, and now the end is near. Of the beer that I bought in Canada. This is the last one. I saved the one I was most excited for last, which is the La Fin du Monde triple style ale.
Lovely.
Yes.
Lovely. Yeah, that's a lot of beer.
It's
so good.
Yeah,
it looks
it's a hunk of beer.
Good. Yeah. In honor of Bond, I wanted to have a martini, but I didn't have any vermouth, so that didn't go anywhere. But I did have some ice cubes, gin, and green olives, so I'm having a close enough.
There you go.
If you will.
It is a gin on the rocks with a splash of olive juice. That's
with olive juice and some olives. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah,
it's tasty.
Yeah.
It's tasty.
I love it.
I like it. Yeah, it's smooth. Yeah. Like a good martini can be, but mine's not a martini. But anyway, close enough.
Tim-Tini.
Exactly. Frank, No Time to Die was supposed to come out like 25 years ago, and
sure feels like
it. I know, and it finally has been released. We are both good-sized fans of Daniel Craig's outing as Bond. Before we get into No Time to Die, let me see if I get this right. You truly do love Casino Royale.
Correct.
You are mediocre on Quantum of Solace.
Mm-hmm.
Probably gets a bad rep, but it's not as terrible as, say, other Bond movies.
That's correct.
Yep. Skyfall is genius, probably his best one. Spectre is less so. It's definitely not Quantum of Solace, but it's not anything to write home about, mostly.
You have nailed it for me so far.
Excellent. And so that brings us to No Time to Die, to which I'm going to say is not as good as Skyfall or Casino Royale, but definitely better than Spectre and Quantum of Solace.
Yeah. It's up there with Skyfall and Casino Royale for me. I think it's like a very good trilogy of films with a couple of okay ones in between.
Yep, I really was describing myself as well as describing you. That's really the read on it. Like, he has Daniel Craig's Bond 5 movies that are actually 5 consistently good movies.
Yeah, like compared to other eras of Bond.
Oh my gosh, so he's so rare.
His batting average is better. You know, like it has its low points, but the average is much better.
Yeah, Quantum of Solace suffers because of the writer's strike. It's not.
Yes, that's right.
Necessarily, it was just a rush job, and they were just unfortunate recipients of terrible timing.
Yes.
And Spectre's overblown, but it's not a bad movie. It's just a little too much.
That had more of a marketing problem that has stuck with it because we're not that far away from it yet. But I think that one will age better than we expect.
Probably. Yeah, I enjoyed it when I watched it, but I think I actually enjoy it more in light of No Time to Die, which I honestly think I put it on par with Casino Royale for me, or pretty close. I don't think any of them touch Skyfall, which I think is the best Bond movie ever made. Like, it's just enough of everything to really, really work for me. Actually, I take that back. I think GoldenEye is probably the best Bond movie, but From Russia with Love, this is tough. It's actually a really tough thing.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before. Look at the Beer with Geeks episode 007.
Yeah, we did that. It was great. But I loved this. I watched it at home. I waited because the baby and stuff. It's hard to get to the movies to see things. So I waited and I rented it because I wanted to support this $1 million franchise.
That is so selfless of you.
I know.
To think of the Broccoli family in this time.
I know. I mean, they're suffering. They might have gone from multimillionaires to just millionaires. I don't know. I don't even know. Anyway, I paid the $20, and I'm actually really happy that I'm really happy that I did, because I actually haven't had a viewing experience that has been almost seamless. Like, as watching, I had to pause the movie a couple times, but I couldn't wait to get back to it. And I watched, it's almost a 3-hour movie, and I watched 2 hours and 15 minutes of it in one day, which is
nice.
It tells you a lot about how much I was enjoying it.
You were committed to it.
I was really committed. I really I sacrificed sleep on either end. I stayed up late to watch a good chunk of it, and then I was up at 4:00 this morning to finish it.
Wow.
5:00 this morning, actually. Well, the baby was up, but I was up with the baby. So
I understand. Yeah.
So she and I watched James Bond together.
But that makes it all the more impressive that you pulled it off.
Yeah, I really dug it. It's a memento mori in a film, right? Yeah, it's a remember that you are going to die.
Yeah.
So that you live one last time. And the whole movie is about living, because all of the other Bond movies, he's basically seeking his death all the time. He is completely self-destructive individual.
He's circling the drain, right? It may not be this time, but it's going to happen.
Right. And so and this is finally the I go out nobly. I leave this world with a legacy that is actually one of love, not one of tortured selfishness. Yeah, selfishness, which is kind of Bond's MO.
That's right.
I thought it was a lovely way to wrap Bond's story.
I totally agree. I think it is a very fitting for a sort of a suffering kind of Bond that he's been, emotionally suffering kind of Bond he's been for all these years, to sort of finally find himself in the end and be at peace, while still being an action-packed, thrill-packed, exciting movie. It was well-rounded. It did all of those things that a Bond movie is supposed to do very, very well. Yep. It's the balance is the things, the movies that we even talked about before of which one is the best one? The ones that even make it into that top 3, top 5 are all ones that do that are well balanced and hit all, sort of check all the boxes.
Yeah, because a Bond movie has to do certain things. He has to do cool stunts. He has to have some kind of gadgets. He has to wear a tuxedo at some point in the film and fight in it, probably. Those are kind of he has to have a conversation with M. I don't know.
Sure.
And Q.
You're looking for
you're
looking for a 4-quadrant Bond movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's you want to hit all the corners.
This Bond is relational. He like those films are the best of the films are Casino Royale and Skyfall, and to an extent Spectre and now No Time to Die are interested in like the kind of the gravitational pull of Bond and how the world weirdly revolves around him when he enters the arena. Because like here's this like movie where there's this nanobot, the destruction device and blah blah blah, and Emma's like, it's don't worry about it, it's not for you, it's off this, it's off the books, it's all and as soon as Bond enters the arena, everyone is basically like, okay, James, what are we
doing?
Plan?
Yeah.
And everyone tries not to, like there's like actively trying not to do that, and he's also weirdly actively trying not to do that until Felix dies, and now it's not about Bond anymore, it's about Felix, which I liked. I had a brother, his name was Felix, which I was like, I don't know if I'd call him your brother.
Yeah, it feels like a stretch, but okay.
Yeah, but you've gone through some stuff. I mean, there's obviously history there that we are not privy to. What's always funny about this Bond, which they even comment in this movie, is that he's always retiring. Like at the end of every movie, he's like, I'm done. And then he goes
constantly.
and lives on the beach for a while, and then somebody finds him living in his beach house.
Just when he thinks he's out, they drag him back in.
Every single time. And they kind of comment on that here in this movie. But that's part of the pull of Bond, that he's always going to come back in. But anyway, my point is that like there's stuff that there's missions we don't see Bond do, and there's that means that there's interactions with Felix we don't see.
That's right. Yeah, and there's think about all the in media res sequences in all these films, right? Like that gives you just a little taste of the stuff that he's doing outside of what we see.
Yeah. What I like about the action in this movie is that Bond, he's older, and part of Skyfall and Spectre is that like he's getting old and he can't fight the way that he used to fight. So, but you can actually track his progression from Casino Royale, where he's like literally running through drywall and like barging into things and jumping on this thing and doing all that parkour. And by the time you get to he's doing a lot of parkour, and by the time that you he really smashes his way through the parkour, which is like the thing. Like you have the other guy doing the parkour, and he's just like, I don't have time for that. But what I like about this Bond, by the time you get to the end on the island, also has to go to a secret base. That was the thing about Bond.
That's right. That's right.
It's a structured takedown. Like it's like such a uniform, like I'm going to do this as quickly and quietly, or not as physically as possible. Like everything that he does is like vehicle driven or gun driven, or it's like there's very little there's very little brutality with his fists, but when he does do it, it's so impactful.
Yes.
Yeah.
He pulls the punches, so to speak, for the big moments. He waits until the big moments.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. How do you feel about Bond being in love and Bond having a kid and all of that?
It's rarely done well, is how I feel about it as a rule. You can't talk about it without thinking about On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But I thought it was done rather well here. I think that the Daniel Craig Bond era has done that well in general. Better batting average than the rest of the Bond franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I didn't love it in like when he's like again retires Inspector and he's like, I'm in love, I'm done, and he like goes off and like does this thing. I was like, all right, I don't really buy it in this movie, but I buy it in this film, and I think the opening scene has a lot to do with that. Because it's all about saying goodbye to your past, like burning up your, like they're doing the burning paper thing, and like feels like they're on like Italy's on like the Italian towns on like one big like retreat. Put your burning paper into the waste paper basket, and that is your sin.
Yes,
burning
going away.
Or whatever.
Yes.
That's kind of what it feels like. That's actually exactly what it is.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. But I love this like idea that this movie is about his redemption of self and forgiveness, because he really is looking for. He's looking to move past his grief with Vespa, which is something that has haunted all of his actions since Casino Royale.
Yes,
and we see that wrapped here with Madeline, and you actually need to move on a bit, and so it's actually about Bond moving on, and part of that movement is his eventual death, and I like that a lot.
Yeah. It is. It is the end of an arc, right? I guess like there's the three main beats of the arc are the three sort of tentpole films of this with Casino Royale and then Skyfall and then now this, and the in betweens. I mean, it's like the Star Trek franchise where it's every other is a good one, is an important one almost. Or like the iPhone where you've got the new number and then the S series.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going back to you said the every other, and you're right. I think that every good Craig Bond movie is about him getting over something.
Yes.
Right. So Casino Royale is kind of like not him getting over something, but it's about him learning about emotional pain or about like being a grown up or whatever, like his betrayal by Vespa and all that stuff. Like he's almost too trusting still as Bond in that movie, and that's what
he's
ends up
growing
hurting
into
him.
his role as Bond for sure.
Right, and so his which becomes very self-inflicted as the rest of them go on. But then Skyfall is about him coming to terms with like the trauma of his childhood, where it's like he's not ready to let go of his adulthood trauma. But like it's about his kind of his mother, like it's about his childhood, it's about his mother figure in M, and like kind of being alone in the world from a different way. If he learns to be alone in Casino Royale, then he's alone again in Skyfall, and then you wrap that back here in which he chooses to chooses to be alone because he rejects Madeline because he thinks that the trust isn't there, and
that's right,
stuff like that. But then for him to choose her again, like, and have a child and opt to save the world, but really to save them.
Yes,
in that, like that's instead of like writing them off, like that's personal growth.
That's the growth. That's the arc.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really good for this particular Bond.
It's very satisfying. It's a satisfying conclusion to this Bond story.
Yeah, and I like, as far as death scenes and stuff goes, I mean, like, he kind of, so like he can't, if he touches people that are also have like the mark on them or the drug or whatever, then he kills them, right? Like that's part of the thing. It kind of, he's like, oh, like Madeline has it, so I'll never be able to be with her, and I'm like I'll be like perpetually alone and like all this stuff, and like, okay, so here's the alone part, like you choose exile in all of these other films, and now like when you are in forced exile, like that's like now like that's a problem, the sweet situational irony, or at least the parallel. But what I was actually reminded of a Smallville, like when like Lana's like infected or whatever, and they're like, we can't actually be close, and it kind of reminded me of that.
Absolutely, I thought of that. I'm glad you thought of it too.
Yeah, I did. Friendship. It all comes back to Smallville.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, as far as death goes, like James Bond literally goes out and fiery glory, and you know, like in an explosion, because that's what Bond does. Like he explodes things.
That is what he's here for.
And so he should go out on so he should go out on a secret island base in an explosion, saving the world. Like, why not?
That's where he belongs.
Friggin' not. Yeah. It's a great ending to see everybody again. You know, one last time to see M and Q and Moneypenny, and for them to all be in on this adventure one last time is really. It's great.
They might continue to be around for all we know. I mean, we've seen like M and Moneypenny, like we've seen those characters carry over from one Bond to the next before. So who knows? Yeah,
that's a great point. Speaking of the carrying on in 007 though, so part of the story is that Bond's retired, so MI6 takes the 007 designation and they give it to this character, this woman named Nomi. And so like you have James Bond and 007 together, which is, I feel like, the Broccoli's answer to being like, will there ever be a female James Bond? And they're kind of like, no, because it's James Bond. That's the character. You don't have to change the gender of this character. Like, why? Like, just make a new character. But you can give the 00 designation to somebody else.
Yes.
And that, I feel like that's kind of them answering their question in a direct way. What did you think of Nomi? What did you think of all
I thought she was brilliant. I mean, I would love to see more of her in any capacity. I would love to see her continue to be 007, you know, and James Bond as a separate character.
Well, I thought that was actually very particular. If at the end of the credits, it's like James Bond will return, not 007,
not 007 will return. No.
James Bond will return, and obviously not him. Like they say, James Bond will return at the end of every movie. That's not but unusual. But not this one.
Yeah, it is a little bit of an interesting. It's a commentary on how they've treated this character, where like 007 is more of the superhero name, if you will, or the anti-hero name, if you will, and James Bond is the real person underneath the costume. Yeah,
that's actually a great way. It's a great way of looking at it. A lot of characters die in this movie. James Bond himself, Felix Leiter, Blofeld, like these are like major characters that are like, oh, I wonder what would happen to that character. Are you satisfied with like knowing that some of these characters don't live on? Like, was it important that Blofeld die to you?
It you know what, oddly wasn't. I wasn't that invested in Christoph Waltz's Blofeld. Not that I didn't like his performance. I really did. I just wasn't it didn't feel as menacing as the original Blofeld. Weirdly, it didn't feel as earned over time, you know? So I didn't have the same sort of, feeling that carried over from other films or whatever, of like, oh, that's Blofeld. It didn't have the same impact. So to see him sort of introduced in that film and then die in this film, it felt fitting. But I didn't have an emotional attachment to him in the same way.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. That was, I think, part of the problem of Spectre, that it was like reliant on you having an attachment to Blofeld in the first place, instead of feeling the threat in of itself. But this movie, like when they were all freaking out about Spectre, I was like, I felt the threat of Spectre in this movie, even as they were all getting killed. And I thought that was well done. Like to see that, you know, I don't know, kind of Spectre come to an end as well as some of these other characters, because Spectre can be a character into itself.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah. As far as Bond villains go, how was Rami Malek for you?
Okay.
Yep.
I like Rami Malek a lot. I loved Mr. Robot the first few seasons of it. I was so into it, and I really like him a lot. I was very excited to see when he was cast in this film. And I think it is not. He was absolutely bone chilling. Like, he was terrifying. His performance was fantastic. I did feel that his character was kind of one note, not all of that. It was sort of a one trick pony situation, and it was a good trick, but it wasn't that he sort of had. You kind of knew what you were getting with that character. I felt I knew what I was getting with that character from the beginning. Once he showed his true colors, so to speak, and showed no mercy, it was pretty clear who he was.
I agree. I think this movie is a character piece more than an action film, and so which is great when you're wrapping up the story of James Bond, because like I feel it's a worthy conclusion as a character's arc and like all this stuff. As far as like Bond saving the world mission goes, it's pretty just par for the course.
Yeah, agreed.
As well as Rami's character. I did enjoy that his name was basically Lucifer Satan.
Yes.
If you got, like, it was like Lucifer Safin. And you're like, good, excellent.
Cool.
Lucifer Satan. Your name is Lucifer Satan. Like,
subtle.
I get what you're putting down. Yeah, absolutely. Evil for evil's sake, like he has reason, but
he has reason, but yeah,
it's reason. It's one of those like the script demands that I be evil because James Bond needs to progress as a character. It does not open this film. It does not open. Oh my gosh, what's the in media res during a James Bond mission, which I think is wild. Like, what a break from tradition.
For the
it's like Star Wars
film.
Not opening in space. Yeah, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Or
without a crawl, almost. Like, it's big. It's a big departure. But it works. It works in this film.
Oh, yeah. I'm immediately immersed in the film right from the start. It's excellent. I think my favorite character in the whole thing, maybe just apart from Bond, is Paloma by Ana de Armas.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
She was great. She's like, 3 weeks training.
You want, like, I want that movie, you know? And it was fun. There was an extra added layer of fun because they were co-stars already. But
in Knives Out. Yeah.
But I wanted to see that like buddy cop movie of the two of them.
Totally. I would watch her character in its own
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I was immensely taken by her. I also loved a sassy Russian scientist whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. But it kind of reminded me of what's his name from GoldenEye, Alan Cumming. I'm invincible.
Yeah, the Alan Cumming character. Yeah.
Boris. His name's definitely Boris. No question. But it kind of reminded me of like that kind of sassy scientist, which is also emblematic of a Bond film. So it's cool. Anything else you want to say about No Time to Die?
I want to say that Alan Cumming's character was Boris Grishenko. And I want to say, it was only the second movie I saw post-pandemic, I think, in the theater.
Nice.
In the Heights and then this. And it did not disappoint. It was a great return to theater, which, by the way, you totally understand why they were so careful about postponing it so many times, because a virus is a major component of it. And maybe it seemed like in poor taste to release it in 2020 in the height of a virus.
Yep. I can see how that actually would have really hurt the film. People are like, I don't want to watch a movie about a virus.
So it makes sense.
Obviously it's different. It's nanobots. It's not,
Well, yeah, but like when all the movies were, Wonder Woman 84 and a bunch of other movies were like, oh, we're going to do same day streaming and in theaters, when that was beginning to be a thing, everyone was like, come on, MGM, just put out Bonds like on streaming the same day. Just come on, just do it. And now I understand why they didn't.
Yep. Also because I think they were asking for like $1 billion.
They were asking for $1 billion.
Like that.
But again, now I understand why they were asking for $1 billion. Because they were like,
because they really didn't want to loot
we'll do it.
I mean, it's making it,
but it's going to make a lot of money for
its money.
It is now. Yes. So now I understand why they made
$700 million worldwide.
I'm the first one to be critical of corporate decisions like that, but now they had a reason. They had a reason.
They did. And I can also understand why they didn't want to say that reason out loud, because it is kind of an integral part of the movie that you wouldn't want to give away.
Yep.
Yeah, I just it's just an excellent send off for Bond.
Very much so. Very fitting and very satisfying, and a great cap on the end of a great 15 years for him, and a 25th entry into the Bond film franchise.
Yep. And as far as Bond film goes, I think it's definitely in the upper echelon of Bond movies, because we love the character, but if you go back and watch 25 of those movies, most of them are not great.
Yeah.
They're okay to middling. Some are excellent, but like not all of them are something to write home about.
They can't all be winners.
No, they can't. But Daniel Craig's movies really, it's even the worst one is still one of the better ones.
And 3 out of 5 ain't bad.
Nope. You know what else isn't bad, Frank? Where people can find us.
Oh, no, it's not bad at all. It's really good. Because you can find us at beerwithgeeks.com or thoughtbubbleaudio.com, or you can support us at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. But you could also contact us at like beerwithgeeks, at beerwithgeeks on Twitter, and beerwithgeeks@gmail.com. Or you can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Overcast and other apps that have rating services. And you can subscribe to us anywhere podcasts are found. So yeah, there's so much to be excited about there.
There is, Frank. And it's also exciting talking to you every week on this podcast, and I can't wait to do it again. So, until next time,
cheers.
Frank and Tim will return.